a student can't understand the next idea unless they understand the first idea. So like, and this happens everywhere. So like, for example, I'm going to give you like a non-math example just for fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Like my wife asked me to say something to my son and he was like outside. So I went out there and I told it to him and he started to like reject it. He's like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, well, look, I'm just the emissary. And I know he doesn't know what this word is.
Exactly.
But I look it up. So I looked it up and Siri said, well, it's a diplomat who is working on a government mission for some blah, 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 blah. And at this point, I'm giving up because I'm going to have to explain to him what a diplomat is. I'm going to have to explain to him what a government is. I'm going to have to, right? So like, but the same thing is true. You can't understand what an emissary is unless you know about diplomats and government and, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And like you were talking about earlier, you know, the more complex math that we get into and the less when we don't go back and start this from the beginning, then we're just compiling the misunderstanding and the frustration and the meltdowns. They just happen because there's just so many disconnects there that we create.
I'd be emotional too. I mean, think about it. If you or I went to a third year biochem course, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'd get up and walk out. We wouldn't understand anything the professor was saying because we missed 3 years of jargon that we didn't learn.
Right. Yeah.
But you can't get up and walk out of third grade.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, when we remediate, we don't go back to understanding. We just go on to drilling and trying to get.
I spoke to a superintendent in, I think it was Illinois, that he said, yeah, you know what we do with the students in fifth grade that are behind is we just teach them the same materials but slower.
Oh.
And now that I'm talking, like this is literally what he said. He said, now that I'm talking to you and you've explained this to me, what you're saying makes absolute sense. It's just street smarts. You don't need a PhD to understand. If you don't get addition, you don't get multiplication. There's no way you can understand multiplication without addition.
Right. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But we just teach the same kids the same thing slower. So I don't know if they changed it. That was like 5 years ago. By now, I'm sure he's switched this around. Yeah. But that's what our system was designed to do. That's the beautiful part about elephant learning is that we start out behind the student trying to catch up to them, to find their levels. So we just come in and then we find out what that level of understanding is. And then we start building them from there. Now, suppose they have a gap. So suppose they have a gap maybe in the third grade, but they're at the fifth grade level. The wonderful part about it is they still had all of those experiences between first and fifth grade.
Right. Yes.
So if we fill that one gap, well, guess what? They just jump straight back to the next gap is what they do. Is they just start floating right up to the next gap. So we see students that are recovering learn 2, 3, 4 years of mathematics within 3 or 4 months.